Hey A&P peeps, this is Dr. Jones checking in. Let's talk about the endocrine slides. So this is A&P 2 Lab 1 endocrine slides, and these are found in the orange booklet on pages 9 and 10. I'm working out of the version 6.0 of the booklet, so if you're on a newer booklet, they might be on slightly different pages. First off, on each of these slides, don't forget a possible question is name the gland or name the organ. Now, if the question is name the organ, then you need to include the word gland in the answer. If the question is name the gland, then you just need the name of the gland. So, for instance, on this slide, name that gland. Okay, let's do name the organ. That way you have to put both words. And this is the pituitary gland. So the pituitary gland is also called the hypophysis. Let me turn the pen on. No, that's not what I want. Here we are. Black. Okay. So this is the pituitary gland. And again, I am writing with my mouse, so I apologize. That's a G. The pituitary gland has two major parts. There's the anterior lobe and the posterior lobe. So let's start with this darker red side. What is this part of the pituitary gland? And let's use the Latin for lab. So the Latin term for the pituitary gland is the hypophysis. Hypophysis. So this darker red part is the adenohypophysis. And it is the anterior lobe, A for A, adenohypophysis for anterior lobe. Or what in lecture I will occasionally call, often call the ant pit. But you can't put ant pit on the lab test and expect to get any credit. For the lab test, you need to put adenohypophysis. And then what is the lighter half called? That's right, it's the neurohypophysis. That's a Y. And this is the posterior lobe. Or what in lecture for test 2 I will call the post pit. But for the lab test, you need to put neurohypophysis. So the darker part is the adenohypophysis and the lighter part is the neurohypophysis. But if it says name the organ, then you say pituitary gland. You got it. Next slide. There are actually two glands shown on this slide. So let's start with this part here with these circles, all these little spheres here. This is the thyroid gland. And it is, I think, the easiest one because it's visually distinctive. It's got these balls made out of cells with a fluid center. And we will name all of those bits. So name the organ. And this part here with these dark cells with no spheres, touching it is what gland? What organ? Parathyroid gland. I don't think that's going to fit on one. line. Now, the parathyroid gland looks exactly like a bunch of other glands we're going to look at, except it's touching the thyroid. So they won't ask parathyroid gland unless the thyroid gland is showing, because otherwise it's difficult to tell. So name the entire sphere. And these are spheres, they're cut, so the cut sphere looks like a circle. So the entire sphere is called that's right, thyroid follicle. Now, the cells that make up the walls of the thyroid follicles, what are they called? Thyroid follicle cells, or follicular cells. That is not right. That's a Y. So it's like the eggshell surrounding the egg. It's part of the egg, but it's the wall of the egg. And these are, of course, three-dimensional. And then the fluid inside, technically the fluid inside is called colloid, but the stuff in the colloid that we care about is the thyroglobulin. Thyroglobulin. And you're going to see this glob a lot, and it's like glob, like globe, and it means spherical. It's a round protein. Okay, and then we need to learn the names of the cells in the parathyroid gland, and the majority, the cells that we're learning are called chief cells. Although I think the new lecture book has a different term for them, but for lab we'll call them chief cells. Okay, so this is all about the thyroid gland and the parathyroid gland on one slide. There's lots of thyroid where you can't see the parathyroids, so don't be concerned if you see a thyroid without a parathyroid. But they won't ask parathyroid except on a slide where you can also see the thyroid. So, next slide. Same thing, but zoomed out a little. So name this gland, thyroid gland. Name the entire sphere, thyroid follicle. Name the cells, the wall of the sphere, thyroid follicle cells, and name the substance of interest inside the thyroid follicle, thyroglobulin. Name this and this, two parts of the same organ. So name this organ, parathyroid gland, and name these cells, chief cells. Excellent. Okay, this looks similar to the parathyroid gland, but it's completely different. Name this organ. It's the thymus. Okay, and these structures, there's one here, and there's part of one here. To me, they look a little bit like wonky boiled eggs. And this is a thymic corpuscle. thymic corpuscle. That's a P. Okay, let me double check the spelling on corpuscle because that looks wonky and I haven't actually written it down for a while. Corpuscle. No, that's right. It's just my P is weird. Okay, and then what about all of these cells that aren't thymic, part of the thymic corpuscles? That's right, those are your lymphocytes. And yes, those are white blood cells. I didn't leave enough room, did I? I should have gone off the other side. Okay, well there you have it. Name the organ, thymus gland. Name these wonky deviled egg looking things, thymic corpuscles. Oh, I pointed to two. Let me make it plural. And then name all of these other cells. The ones we're learning are lymphocytes. There we go. It's a little wonky, but you get the idea. Okay, name that organ. This one has two names, but let's go with adrenal gland. The other is suprarenal because it sits on the kidneys, and the term for kidney is renal, and it's superior to the kidney, so suprarenal. But it makes adrenaline. So it's also called the adrenal gland. Okay, we've got a couple of bits we need to learn here. This outer shell is the capsule, the adrenal capsule. That was supposed to be a P. That's a U. Writing with my mouse, I apologize. Okay, and then from here to here is the cortex. This is the adrenal cortex. And you can clearly see that the capsule is the fibrous outer layer, and the cortex is the superficial part of the gland. And this that I'm marking out will be the squishy gooey filling, the center of the gland. And the center of the a gland is called a medulla. So this is the adrenal medulla. This is the part that will make the adrenaline. Those are L's. The adrenal medulla. Now the adrenal cortex has three layers. The outer, about 15% is called the zona glomerulosa. I didn't have room, so. Glomerulosa. Did I spell it right? That's true. Yeah. And then the next, like the majority of the gland, is the zona fasciculata. Fasciculata, S-C-I-C-U-lata. That's a lot of zona fasciculata. It's the majority of the gland. And the last, actually it should probably be a little more than that. The last, about 15%-ish, those are Z's, is the zona reticularis. Reticularis. So they go roughly here-ish. Now, on the slide you're looking at, you should be able to tell exactly where the adrenal capsule is and exactly where the adrenal medulla is. And if you can see just this much of it's the adrenal cortex, you may not be able to see exactly the difference, but you can proportion them out. The glomerulosa is small, the reticularis is small, the fasciculata is big, and it's the majority of it. Okay, next slide. Name that organ. It's the same thing, right? So this is the adrenal gland, and this outer bit here, from here to here, is the adrenal capsule. You've got the central adrenal medulla, and then this hole in between is the adrenal cortex. And then here you can kind of see the difference, right? From like here to maybe here-ish is the zona glomerulosa. And then the majority is going to be zona fasciculata. And then a little bit, and it looks a little different on this slide, the zona reticularis. Okay. Adrenal capsule, adrenal cortex, adrenal capsule, and adrenal medulla. There we go. Sort of labeled. Okay, name that organ. This is the pancreas, and I've never heard anyone call it the pancreas gland, so we're just going with pancreas. Now, the majority of the pancreas is this dark purple stuff, but it has these occasional light purple splotches. Let's go this direction. And the light purple splotch is the pancreatic islet. And islet is like island, where the S is silent. Pancreatic islet. And the cells in the pancreatic islet are the islet cells. And everywhere that's not pancreatic islet is pancreatic acini. But if they ask for the name of the cell in the pancreatic acini, that's an E. It was an E. So these are the acinar cells in the pancreatic acini. Okay, so for me, that flips us to page 10. And we will go over this again for lab 4, but let's get just a few basic concepts down. First of all, what organ is this? This is the testis. And we need to learn the name of these round structures. These are tubes that fold back and forth. So the whole round structure, and this is a long word for this space I have, this is the seminiferous tubule. F-E-R-O-U-S. Tubule. And here's another seminiferous tubule, and another seminiferous tubule. Okay, so these cells that are outside of the seminiferous tubules, in between the seminiferous tubules, are called interstitial cells. I think the new lecture book calls them interstitial hormone cells, but for now we can still call them interstitial cells for lab. And we will talk all about what those do later this semester. And here is our last slide. What organ is this? These are the ovaries. That's an R. Sorry. I hate writing with my mouse. As needs must. Okay, so this entire round thing is called a tertiary follicle. They used to call it the Graafian follicle, but once we get back to this for Lab 4, we're not going to use that term. We're going to use the new term, so you may as well just learn the new term. And tertiary means third. Tertiary. And there is one giant cell here in the middle, and that is this may be a new term, but this is the technical term for the egg at this stage. This is an oocyte. So, all right, that has been all about the endocrine slides for A&P 2 Lab 1. Thank you, as always, for tuning in. The education must go on. Dr. J out.